The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Yes, hello everyone, it's Rob Rosenthal here, episode number 5, All You Can Eat. Welcome to the show. It is snowing right now on the first day of spring here in New York City, and it reminds me that it's a damn good time to stay inside. And if we're going to stay inside, we might as well do some cooking. So today's show is all about recipes. There's a lot of recipes coming at you. Pay attention, get your appetite ready. Let's do some cooking. So today is predominantly about recipes and cooking. And so I have a ton of them here in front of me, carefully curated. Some of the recipes are from well-known chefs. You know, I have something here that I really like from the Barefoot Contessa. You may know her from the Food Network. I've got an Andrew Zimmern recipe. I've got even a Sam Sifton. He's the head food guy over at the New York Times. And then I have some recipes that, I like. There's even some ideas about how to use stale bread, because there's actually plenty of good uses for that. I have one of my favorite recipes from, French brasserie cooking. It's for a salad, but it's the best salad. It's got the bacon and it's got a runny egg, so that's exciting. And in addition to all that, I believe that I can recommend to you a number of interesting ingredients, articles, potentially books, and product ideas. So hang in, and let's do a little all-you-can-eat. And I want to start off, as I mentioned, with a series of recipes that I saw. And again, it's one of those things. Look, I in general will encourage people to spend more time cooking. Right? As many of you know, have written a cookbook, which is really kind of a how-to cookbook. And the idea is to kind of make it simple. My whole philosophy is how do you get the most taste with the fewest ingredients and the least effort. This isn't about that, although I try to abide by that formula in general. When I see recipes in a book or online, I want to make sure that they're not too many ingredients. I want to make sure they're not too complicated, but like loaded with flavor. And I happen to have come across a series of recipes today that were exciting to me. And like I said, because it's the kind of day that you really don't want to go outside, I mean, assuming that you have the ingredients, I'm going to throw some recipes at you that would excite me. People love Ina Garten. She's the woman there that you will see on the Food Network. The Barefoot Contessa used to actually have a store by that name and sold some kind of very, luxury kind of gourmet items. But the woman can cook, that goes without saying. And if you watch any of her shows, you see her there in the kitchen and she's having a real good time. I mean, she's smiling and she's happy and she's making food. And the one thing I will say about her food, and I'm not a fan of every, chef that you see on TV, but the one thing that you got to say about her food is that it does follow very much philosophically in the kind of cooking that I like. She's not making super fancy. She's not making super complicated. She's making food that you look at and you go, you know what? I could go for that right now. And so today I caught something that she says is probably her, not only her go-to, but she said it's probably the most common weeknight dinner that she ever makes. And it's the Barefoot Contessa's Parmesan chicken. Notice that it's Parmesan chicken, not rather than chicken Parmesan. We've all had the chicken Parmesan where you have that big hunk of beautiful melty cheese and tomato sauce over a nice, piece of basically fried chicken or veal Parmesan, which is delicious. But her Parmesan chicken actually is not that. It's literally chicken breast that has been coated in some crumbs, and those breadcrumbs include Parmesan cheese. Doesn't that just generally sound appetizing? Because it does to me. Let me tell you what she does, right? Just follow with me on the concept. It's not about the specificity of ingredients. Again, if you want specifics, it's kind of easy to find it, and I'll tell you where. You can always ask me by going to the shortorderdad.com website, and there's a little tab in there where you can ask Rob. Or you can literally look online. In this case, for example, Barefoot Contessa Parmesan chicken probably has 5 Google results will show up. But the idea is that she takes, to make the crust on the chicken, she needs some flour, and you always want to season the flour, so the flour has salt and pepper in it. And then she's going to do a little what you call the egg wash. So this requires a couple of eggs that you scrambled up with maybe a tablespoon of water, so that's ready to go. Her breadcrumbs are not fancy. She'll use regular, store-bought breadcrumbs, and that's fine. You could make your own, but that's maybe a step more than you want to go, although later I will tell you it's one of the things that you can do with, kind of day-old bread, which is to say, toast it up and stick it in the, the processor and make your own breadcrumbs. You don't have to do that for the Barefoot Contessa. She's perfectly good with your store-bought breadcrumbs, to which she adds a whole bunch of Parmesan, cheese, finely ground Parmesan cheese. And the way that she grinds it, I thought was great. Sometimes when you grate your own, it's work to get, like a cup or half a cup in this case. She just takes chunks of Parmesan cheese and sticks it in the food processor. If you got one of those, it does make the job easier, because you want that Parmesan to be finely ground. And then she takes her chicken breasts, right, which are easy enough. You get those anywhere. And she pounds them out. She pounds them out to make them thinner rather than fatter. How do you do that? That's pretty easy. You stick them in between 2 pieces of, wax paper or that plastic saran wrap type of stuff, and then you bang it out. You don't own a meat pounder? Not a big deal. You can do it with like a rolling pin. You can do it with a heavy gauge pan, like cast iron pan. So she pounds out the chicken breast, right? And you don't need a ton of time to prep this thing, because then she takes butter and oil, the combination, and puts them into a big old, saute pan or fry pan, right? So that starts to heat up. And in the meantime, while that's heating up, that chicken breast gets hit up with some of that flour, right? Just enough to kind of coat it. Then it gets the dip. This is classic. This is classic how you kind of bread, things that your food that you're going to, fry or saute up. She takes the chicken breast that's been floured, and she dips it in that egg wash mix, right? Your eggs with a little bit of water in it. And that whole piece then goes into your breadcrumb and Parmesan cheese mix. Now, doesn't that sound good? So you have these beautiful breaded kind of cutlets. And by now, your oil and butter are sizzling over medium-high heat, let's say. You can see them sizzling, so that way when you drop the chicken into it, you automatically hear that that beautiful sizzle that you hear. And so, like 2-3 minutes on each side, because, again, it's kind of like it's thin, so it'll cook a little bit faster than if you have big fatty fat pieces. So 2-3 minutes, let's say, on each side. It's brown, it's lovely, and then when they're done, and you look at them and they're brown, and, you hit them, you put your finger on the thing. If the chicken springs up just a little bit, you go, oh, that's pretty good. I feel good about that. And then all of those finished breaded chicken breast pieces go on a baking sheet that maybe you've lined with some parchment paper, and it goes into an oven, not to cook, but really just to stay warm, 200 degrees, let's say. And here's what it is that I like. You ever go into these restaurants where they serve that giant, chicken paillard, or even a piece of like breaded chicken or breaded veal, and on top of it they put a nice, salad. So she does that. She'll serve the hot chicken, which is now waiting for you in the oven at 200 degrees, with a nice salad on top of it. And the key to the salad, I like arugula because it's kind of like spicy and peppery, so that's great. But the key to the salad is a nice lemon vinaigrette. And I want to talk to you a little bit about vinaigrette. You should never, ever, in my estimation, in my opinion, you should never be buying vinaigrette. It's just too damn easy to make on your own. And it's greater when you make it on your own. It's always tastier and it's always fresher. So whether you're going to do this thing with arugula or you want to do it with some regular, more, I guess, crunchy lettuce, that's fine. It doesn't matter. You're going to take some lemon juice that's fresh squeezed, like maybe a quarter of a cup of it. And then however much you take, you're going to put 2 to 3 times as much olive oil into it. And then you simply mix in some salt and pepper and whisk that around. And if you wanted to, you could add a little Dijon mustard. That'll emulsify, it'll add more flavor, up to you. Doesn't matter. Because the chicken has enough flavor, you don't really have to do that. But again, a beautiful piece of Parmesan chicken, not complicated to make, juicy on the inside, crusty with a nice, and warm with a nice cold salad and a lemon vinaigrette on top of it. And you know what? I could go for that right now. Now, next up, since we're doing kind of, celebrity chef themed recipes, this one is going to be for chicken wings, which, to be honest with you, are good anytime. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of, much as I love a good thigh, I mean, chicken wings, I'm kind of addicted. If there were a self-help group, again, hello, my name is Rob. Andrew Zimmern, you may know, he's all over TV, traveling around the world and eating. When it comes to kind of home cooking, though, one of the recipes that I liked that I saw on his site was sticky, spicy Chinese chicken wings. Now, that either sounds good to you or it doesn't, and I don't know why it wouldn't, because they're sticky and spicy and they're Chinese-flavored chicken wings. My only kind of caveat with this is that it falls well beyond my normal range of 5-6 ingredients max. There's a couple of extra ingredients in this thing, but yet I'm going to put it out to you anyway because it's not like it's super complicated to make, and what makes it uncomplicated is that all the cooking is taking place in one pan. He doesn't even put this stuff in the oven, which I would normally do, right? I can get you great chicken wings with 2 ingredients. I'll come back to that in a second. Andrew's going to have like 8 to 10. But he doesn't put it in the oven. He doesn't put it in the fryer. He's making them on top of the stove in a, in a big old, frying pan, which everybody has. I'm going to give you the concept again for what he does. And essentially when I say he's making on top of the stove, he's going to be braising them, which means he's cooking them in liquid. And the trick, to his liquid is that over time it is going to get kind of thicker, more syrupy, coat the wings, and and so it's one of those that like you're eating them and you're going, oh God, this is so good, and you get that that like there's wing sauce all over your fingers, and it's that kind of thing. But it's like, anyway, I'm going to tell you how to make it conceptually, and again, if you want it, you can either hit me up on shouldertoday.com. I'll walk you through it, or I suppose it's easy enough to find on his site, the sticky, spicy Chinese chicken wings. So you get your chicken wings, a whole couple of pounds or 3 pounds of those. He uses some dried red chilies, which are pretty easy to come by. That's what gives it kind of the spicy thing. Here are some important ingredients in this. 1 cinnamon stick, okay. 2 pieces of star anise or anise. To me it's star anise, and that's fine. It's really the kind of ultimate. It's so fragrant. I can smell it way easier than you can describe it, but it has that combination of kind of cinnamony, licoricey, beautiful flavor that makes this characteristically Chinese. He's going to use sugar, but rather than just any sugar, if you want to get exotic, he's got rock sugar, which I'm pretty sure you can find in any supermarket, but it's a little bit more Asian. Fresh ginger, minced, important ingredient. Such great flavor out of that. Scallions, you only need like 3 of them, but that's fine. And then liquid-wise, right, there's going to be some mirin, which is like a sweet rice wine. There's going to be a little bit of sake, right, the Japanese rice wine. And he's got soy sauce and some water and some oyster sauce. So again, this guy is 6 or 7 ingredients more than I would normally use. And yet, when you put these ingredients together, right, so you're going to, like, conceptually, right? You're going to brown some wings in a frying pan, and then you're going to start adding in things to it, like your chilies and your cinnamon and your star anise and your rock sugar and some ginger and some scallion pieces in the liquid, right? You have your mirin, you have your sake, you have your soy, a little bit of water, and the oyster sauce. And this whole thing is going to cook down and down and down until that liquid becomes essentially a syrup. And you could just, that combination of flavors, like you just know that that's going to be delightful. That's just going to be like, I'm just thrilled eating these things. That's why I'm putting this recipe out, because while it uses way more ingredients than I would ever use, I think it would be worth doing if you're feeling ambitious. Obviously, you're going to have to pick up some of these ingredients, because I don't even have all these in my house, and I got a lot of stuff, but I'd have to probably go. I probably do have some mirin. I know that I have soy. Rock sugar, no. Ain't going to have it. And fresh ginger, you have to go out and pick up, and fresh scallions. But man, sticky, spicy Chinese wings coming to you from Andrew Zimmern sounds real good to me when there's a little bit of chill in the air. Now, what I had promised you was that I could make that dish in 2 ingredients, and it's not going to be the same. I'm not going to bullshit you here. You know what I mean? I could do 2 ingredients, and frankly, I would, because why would I want to use 10 or 12 if I could do something that was great in 2? And so how do you do the great in 2 chicken wings? And here's what I would do. I would take those chicken wings, and I would hit them up with, I've said it before, I don't mean to be repetitive, but maybe some Frank's, chicken. Again, this is not going to be Chinese, right? This one would be like buffalo style, right? Just hit them up with your Frank's, throw them into the oven, super high heat, and let it get all crispy and take them out and they're good. You don't actually need more than that. Now, what if I wanted to make it like Chinese style, right? I would simply take some soy sauce and maybe some garlic and ginger and blend that all together and put a little hit of honey in the thing, right? So you got soy, ginger, garlic, honey. You want to throw in some scallions and marinate your wings in that and put that in the oven until it's brown and crispy. And again, the crispier, the better. You're really not going to beat these things up too much. You can let them cook at a relatively high heat for long enough that you look at them and you go, you know what? Those things look really ready to eat. What else can you do if you wanted to do these things in few ingredients? You could buy a marinade. You could literally buy a teriyaki marinade in the supermarket. You could marinate them in that, right? So it's Chinese style. I'm not going to recommend it, because I really think you're better off always making your own marinade than a pre-bought one. But it's not to say that there aren't perfectly good marinades that you can use. You ever hear of the soy vey, right? You can get soy vey, I guess, Asian-style marinade. Hit up your wings with that. Put them on a roasting sheet. Put them in the oven at high heat. Boom. 2 ingredients. Lovely. What else could you do? There's probably there's a hot sauce that I like. Lingham's. Oh my God, do I love Lingham's. LINGHAM''S. If you can get your hands on it, the beauty of Lingham's is that it's spicy and sweet, right? So you have that combination. The only thing you have to be careful about, and this is really the learning here, is that anytime there's a sugar ingredient in your marinade, the protein is going to get like super brown, right? So you have to be careful. To the extent that there's going to be sugar in your marinade, you have to kind of watch them. You have to turn them over periodically, because the sugars always caramelize and get super brown, sometimes even before the rest of your chicken wing, in this case, is ready. So be careful about that. But anyway, chicken wings, whether you want to do them with 2 ingredients, you want to do them with 4 or 5, or you want to do them with Zimmern's 8 to 10 sticky, spicy Chinese chicken wings, that is some good eating right there. Okay, now, speaking of like soy and ginger and scallions, coincidentally today, I open up my my New York Times cooking section, in which Sam Sifton proposes. He is the overseer, the head guy over there, and he writes and kind of sends out the newsletter which says, oh, here's what we're talking about today. And he offered up a recipe that I thought was perfect. And it's of this same family, right? You want you want to make something fish. In fact, it is, but it's flavored with that same kind of trio of Asian-inspired ingredients: your ginger and your scallions and your soy. And the funny thing about it is basically what it comes down to is our tendency is, we all have a tendency to kind of have the same thing over and over again. I think part of the reason people don't spend more time cooking is because they, they're kind of bored, frankly. It's not just that it's time consuming or that they don't know what they're doing. So many people are like, I'm tired of the same thing. So what I love so much about this particular recipe is that, when you cook fish, you generally kind of cook it the same way. But here's one for you. And I love everything about it. I'm going to read it right from him. He says he gets ginger and scallion and soy. That's pretty damn easy, right? And he buys a few fillets of fish. Now, the idea with this is you can kind of pick the fish you want, but you don't want that big, kind of meaty, steaky fish. Like, you're not looking for, not that it would be bad, by the way, with it, right? But you're not really looking for like the big old tuna steak or the swordfish steak. We're looking for the kind of the lighter, flounder sole, that kind of fish, right? You're thin, you're white, you're flaky fish. And he takes a sheet pan, which, to be honest, is a crucial piece of equipment you should have in the kitchen. It's not complicated. It costs you like $10, $20, whatever. But it's a nice flat metallic pan that you're going to put in the oven. He literally takes the sheet pan, he puts it in the oven, and gets it what he calls ripping hot, right? So for me, that's like, that's 400, 450, whatever, right? Then in a small bowl, he takes a little bit of soy sauce, right? So a couple of tablespoons. And then he adds a little bit of rice wine or sherry you could use. So twice as much on the soy as on the rice wine or the sherry. A heap. This is what I like about what Sam is doing here, by the way. He's doing the conceptual recipe, right? You have to understand the concept. Don't worry about the specifics of how much, but proportion does matter. So for every kind of 2 tablespoons of soy, you're going to have 1 of either, rice wine vinegar, let's say. A heap of minced or grated ginger, and then plenty of thinly sliced scallions, right? And if you want to throw in some garlic, I agree, right? Why not? If you want to put in some hot chili oil, sure, why not? If you like a little bit of sesame oil, go ahead, but just a little bit, because that stuff is super strong. And then all he does is he takes the fish. In his case, like I said, he likes fluke, right? Could be flounder, whatever your light white flaky fish is. Some salt and pepper go on the fish. Pulls out the hot sheet pan from the oven and puts some neutral oil on it. What do I mean by neutral oil? Not your olive oil, right? Not your corn oil, but maybe something that's like a grapeseed. Some people will use canola. Some people will use safflower or sunflower. These are all relatively neutral flavors, right? The fish then goes on the thing. It cooks basically for a minute or so, right? And then a minute or more so under the sauce until it is cooked through, right? So first we're going to cook it, right? We're going to sauce it, and then we're going to cook it all the way through, right? Which doesn't take long, right? Just fish doesn't take long. And then it gets, he'll serve it with rice or greens or whatever, and then makes the point that he said, I bet it would make a good sandwich. All right, so concept: soy, ginger, scallions, maybe some garlic, super hot pan in the oven, quick cooking with a little bit of this marinade on it, and you got yourself a lovely piece of, Asian flavored fish. And that does sound good to me. Hot, or like he says, maybe in a nice sandwich. Now, check it. Before I put out a recipe to you for really one of my favorite salads in the whole world, that frisée au lardon, right? Which is just, I don't know, it's like such a great thing, the bistro salad. But before we even get to that, here's a little something that you can do if you happen to have some stale bread around. When I say stale, I mean like day old. Let's say that, right? You buy a baguette, you have half of it, there's half of it floating around. Don't ever have to throw that away. I'll be honest with you, in my house, if there's a baguette, there's not going to actually be any day-old baguette. It ain't going to get there. However, in a normal place, in a normal home, there's very often times you'll find that you have a loaf of some day-old bread somewhere. When it's day-old, to be honest with you, is not as good as it was when it was fresh, that's for sure. You know, like that bite you take out of the end when you take it out of the, right out of the bakery. Yeah, it's not going to be like that. But the fact that it has less moisture in it, right, means that it's going to toast better, right? And that flavor is going to be maybe even a little bit intensified by some heat and maybe some oil or butter. You with me on this? So there's a couple of ways to play that day-old bread, right? And we were talking before about the Contessa's, breadcrumbs. If I had day-old bread, I'd throw it in the oven till it gets all dried and toasty, and then put it in your food processor, and you got yourself some breadcrumbs. Like, you've made your own homemade breadcrumbs. But that's not the only thing that you can do with day-old bread. One of the other things you can do with it is that you can, well, two other things you can do with it. One is that you could make croutons with it, right? By cutting it into little, quarter-inch, half-inch, cubes. And then, so what do you do with that? Those cubes get cooked in butter, in a saute pan. We did it in French cooking school. We made our own croutons because they will always, always, always be better than what you're going to buy in a bag in a store. Unless somebody in the store is making you fresh croutons, you're always better off making your own. So this is a perfect opportunity to do that, right? You're cubing up your bread into little pieces, and then it goes into a pan, a fry pan. That is, butter is always going to be better. Frankly, in this case, let's not say always. Butter's going to be better than oil. The thing about butter you should know, and it's fine to use whole butter. Clarified butter is a little bit better when it comes to, that's how we did it in school, it's always going to be better when it comes to making your own croutons. Why? Because clarified butter can be heated, it can be used at a much higher heat, right? Because without the milk solids in it, it doesn't get all kind of, brown and that kind of thing. So you could certainly, toast up your bread in olive oil. It's not going to hurt you. You could do it in regular butter. It's not going to be bad. You just have to keep your eye on it. You're looking for it to get, your toast to get brown. You could do it in clarified butter if you had. I'm not going to bother telling you how to clarify butter at this point, even though it's really quite simple. You could also buy clarified butter, very common right now, also known as ghee. Ghee. It's what the Indian cooks use, right? That's clarified butter and ghee are one and the same. So you cube up your loaf of bread, and you toast up the pieces in a saute pan, in a fry pan. Lovely. And the other thing you can do, and this is where I'm going with your stale bread, is you can cut it into like half-inch slices, right? And again, the thing about cutting it into slices is now it's interesting. Now you could toast it. And you could toast it anywhere from in a toaster oven to in your regular oven to literally putting it, using tongs and putting it on a nice hot grill. And there's nothing, I'll be honest with you, I would almost prefer it over the buttery croutons. But like if you take a nice slice of baguette, and I've done this before, by the way, you take the whole baguette, slice it in half and put it on a hot grill. And then, when it comes off, it's got that beautiful smoky, toast and the grill marks on them. It's fantastic. It only needs like a minute on each side if you happen to have a grill or even a grill pan. Or like I said, a slice of this stuff in the toaster oven or under the oven until it gets all toasty. And then when it comes out, the best thing to do is take a little garlic, cut the garlic in half so that it's exposed, right? And then with the cut side down, rub it over the bread, right? Just rub it. So now you're garlicking the bread. Right, so it's hot and toasty. Now you're going to take half a clove of garlic, right? The cut side down, just rub nice over the bread. It's so beautiful. Then you take some nice olive oil, right? Drizzle that on the thing. Hit it up with some flaky salt, right? Maybe you have a couple of grinds of pepper if you want. Perhaps there's some fresh herbs, right? And that's just beautiful, beautiful eating right there on some bread that was a day old. That's way better this way than it would be any other way. If you have toasty bread, the beauty of it is that you can use it for so many other things, right? Like it's great as an appetizer. You could put, sometimes I'll throw on some when tomatoes are in season or some cherry tomatoes. You could put on a nice piece of cheese. You could take softened butter and put that on with maybe a little bit of smoked salmon and some juice from a lemon. If you have any tapenade, you don't have tapenade. You refer back to that freaking amazing olive salad that I was speaking about last week that's now available at Costco. A little bit of that olive salad on those little toasty bread points, man, I'm telling you, I could have that right now. That's just so beautiful. What else could go on that? You could put some hummus on the thing. It's like anything. That's the beauty. So there's your day-old bread, and if you happen to use it rather than sliced as potential flat things like for bruschetta or whatever it is that you want to do, it's another thing. You can also make, like I said, the croutons, right? So you're cubing it, you're cooking it up in oil or butter or some combination thereof. And the reason croutons come into play is because I want to tell you about what I think is probably, I'm going to say my favorite salad. Again, it's a French thing, and I happen to have gone to a school that was based on French cooking, so we did end up making it and having it. But I mean, you could get this at any brasserie, any good brasserie or bistro, really anywhere. Will be serving a frisée au lardon, right? And so all you have to know about the fancy French name is that frisée is like a curly lettuce, right? Sometimes we call it curly endive or chicory, right? It's got a little bit of that chicory, kind of like it's slightly bitter, right? You could use other lettuces if you wanted for this thing, but they should, like the bitterness kind of helps, right? So dandelion greens are good, escarole would be good chopped up, or some combination again. And the lardon are just juicy pieces of thick cut bacon. And when you have thick cut bacon and you cut it into juicy little pieces and you fry it up, they're that beautiful combination of like crispy and chewy, right? So you have a salad. It is this lovely, slightly bitter frisée. And the salad is going to get topped with like a classic bistro vinaigrette. And like the classic French vinaigrette, I'm going to give you the recipe for it. It's important that you know it, because when you have it, you go, oh yeah, this is vinaigrette. And it's perfect for this salad. Like the beauty of this salad is also the beauty of almost any meal, is that all the ingredients work so beautifully together and against each other and together and complementary. You know what let me tell you what it is. I mean, you got this lettuce, this chicory, kind of slightly bitter, a little bit of crunch in the lettuce. You have bistro vinaigrette, which I'm going to tell you how to make, but when you taste it, you go, that's good, right? It's got that Dijon mustardy thing going in it, right? And on top of that salad go these beautiful little nubbins of bacon that is both chewy and crispy and smoky, right? And then you have these croutons, which you've made with your day-old bread, like these beautiful buttery croutons. They are, again, also that combination texturally of crunchy, and they still have a little bit of chew in them. And on top of this whole thing, goes a beautiful, medium boiled, let's call it medium boiled egg. Like you want that egg so that when you open the egg over that salad with the bacon and with the croutons and that beautiful dressing and that awesome vinaigrette, like the egg yolk kind of melts into the rest of the salad. You know what I'm talking about? Like we see eggs now being used everywhere. On top of greens, on top of your pizza, on top of anywhere. And that's because eggs are awesome. But they're pretty awesome on a frisée au lardon salad. All I'm going to tell you now, since you know how to make croutons, we talked about that, and it's not complicated for you to cut up a nice slab of thick old bacon, the best you can get, and make juicy lardons, is, cleaning some lettuce. You can do that. Let me tell you what you want to do for the bistro vinaigrette. You're going to want a tablespoon of finely diced shallot. Rob, shallot, really? Yes. Neither onion nor garlic. Maybe I would argue somewhere in between. Not as kind of piquant or biting as onion. Not as intense as garlic. The shallot is a little bit more delicate member of that family. 1 tablespoon of it finely chopped is the base of your vinaigrette. A half a teaspoon of some fine sea salt, Very good. 2 tablespoons of wine vinegar. What kind of wine vinegar, Rob? Red or white? Yeah, that's right. Red or white. Either one. 2 tablespoons. 1 nice tablespoon of Dijon, French Dijon. Come on. Why mess around? Not that complicated. French Dijon mustard, a tablespoon of it. And then 6 tablespoons of your oil, which is to say exactly 3 times the amount that you had in vinegar. Notice, ratio, important. And the neutral oil means we're not using olive oil here in this dressing. We're going to use a grapeseed. We could use a canola. We could use a sunflower oil. And then we're going to do some freshly ground pepper, which could be black, and it could certainly be white. Like if the French were making it, they would use a white pepper. Don't make a special trip to the store for the white pepper. But anyway, you got the picture here on this vinaigrette? That all gets like blended together. Your frisee goes, your croutons go in, your bacon goes in, your vinaigrette goes on top, your egg goes on top of that. Invite me over. Side order of fresh baguette, beautiful glass of wine. This, my friends, is the lunch of champions, a frisee au lardon. Right. Now, let's go another way now on the recipe thing. I happen to have caught recently an article in a magazine, and it's the recipes that define the way that we cook now. I want to take you through some of the recipes because I don't know if it's the way we cook now or not, but there's enough recipes in there that were interesting to me. We don't have to go through them all, but let's take a look at some of the recipes in here. Now, we just came off talking about the frisee au lardon. Here's another recipe that uses croutons, but is not using your standard lettuce. Again, we talk about, you get bored with the same old thing over and over again. So last week I made a big to-do about fennel, right? About how many different ways you could use it. But I mean, fresh fennel, which is not, again, it's another one of those ingredients that it's common among people who, do a lot of cooking, a lot of shopping. But fennel is such an interesting ingredient because it has that it comes from that family of, it's got that licorice-y tasting flavor, which is fine. And again, you could roast it or you could eat it raw. And so what's interesting here about this salad is that it's a shaved fennel salad and it's served with croutons, which we're now making, and walnuts, right? So the reason that this is interesting is because maybe sometime you want a salad that's just like totally different, that's exciting on your taste buds, and the texture is like super crunchy. And all you have to do is what they call, shaved fennel means that you're going to take this fennel, and it comes to you it's in a bulb. It looks like a bulbous, and then it has the stalks shooting out as if they were celery. It's not celery, but it has that kind of texture, although it's not as liquidy as seltzer can be. This stuff is like hard and crunchy, but shave it on maybe some people have like an instrument they can do the shaving on, right? You could probably put it on that processor setting where it's just kind of like, you could even shred it, or you could just cut it yourself into very super thin as you can get it, slices, and it gets served again with croutons. It gets served with walnuts, which are always better. Walnuts are always better, when they're toasted than when they're plain. You may have some Parmesan Reggiano cheese at home, so that's going to go in there. And again, a simple vinaigrette, whether you do it like the French variety, which we have just discussed, or you could make your own vinaigrette with lemon. Shaved fennel sour with croutons, walnuts, and some shreds of Parmesan cheese sounds good to me. Here's a cocktail. I've been seeing a lot lately, right? Haven't you seen the Aperol Spritz around a lot? Kind of got common, got super popular. And the thing about the Aperol Spritz is, Aperol, which is that beautiful kind of red color, has a slight bitterness, like it's sweet and yet bitter. Love that. And so it gets hit up with a nice bunch of prosecco, right? The sparkling wine. So prosecco and Aperol, you got some ice, right? Perfectly good. Maybe you put an orange wedge in there. Anyway, there's a whole lot of different ways to play the idea of the spritz, right? Because you could do it if you have like Pimm's, which is interesting, a British liqueur. You could do it with Campari if you like that. What did I find recently that I was... Oh, yeah. Anyway, the point is that if you want to have something that's a great kind of aperitif, right? Instead of the Aperol Spritz, there's different ways that you can use Prosecco to bring flavors, right? I actually don't mind. It's not liquor-y, but I buy the kind of tart cherry juice, which you can get anywhere, including at Costco, and maybe spritz that up with some Prosecco. That's just, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just plain good. Pantry pasta is on this list of all the foods that we eat today. And the truth of the matter is we've been eating pasta for 10,000 years. People have been eating it for centuries. So there's nothing there's nothing special about pasta today, but there is something important about pantry pasta, and I'll tell you why. Because if you come home, at 2 a.m, and you're a little bit peckish, and you don't have anything in the refrigerator, all you really need is what you have in your pantry, because you know that you have a box of pasta in there. And maybe it's spaghetti, or maybe it's linguine, or maybe it's some form of bucatini, the fatter pot. Whatever it is, you got pasta. And all you need to cook the pasta is some boiling water. And what do we know about the boiling water in the pasta? You're going to put plenty of salt in that boiling water. And when you cook the pasta, you're going to cook it al dente, to the bite, meaning leave yourself some chew in there. I always like to pull out pasta a minute or two before they tell you on the box, yeah? Right? Taste it before you take it out. Taste it, but you want to have a little chew in that pasta. By the time you've gone too far, it's mushy. Now, what else do you need to make great pasta? I mean, kids will tell you all you really need is butter in it. You know what I mean? No, we're adults. So we're going to make a sauce, but we don't need a lot of ingredients. We do need to save some of that starchy pasta water. That's going to help us bind any sauce we put in there together. And we're going to put in some grated Parmesan cheese, and we're going to put in a little olive oil and maybe a little bit of butter, right? And a little touch of that pasta water, and we now have a beautiful al dente pasta that we've made basically out of the pantry, right? With the exception of that Parmesan cheese. Now, missing from the recipe, a whole ton of black pepper. I mean, cacio e pepe is nothing more than some al dente pasta, a little of that pasta water, and it's got the pecorino romano cheese and the black pepper. That's all you need. I mean, that's not a lot of ingredients. That's a lot of good eating. So you're going to want to make some pasta. And, speaking about a runny egg, I tell you, it's one of those things where you go, hey, you know what? I don't mind, frying up an egg and throwing it on top of this thing. That sounds good to me. Pantry pasta, my friends. Here's a recipe for greens and beans with fried bread. I don't care about the recipe. I'm just telling you, when you have the fried bread, or which is another way of saying, croutons, they're going to add a dimension of crunch and texture to almost any salad that you make. Here's one that I thought was interesting, smashed cucumber salads. And the reason I thought it was interesting is because I've never really loved cucumbers. Never did. Then we go at some point to an Italian restaurant, and instead of serving bread at the beginning of the meal, which, never really made sense. A lot of people say you can judge a good restaurant by the bread, and that may be the case, but it does fill you a little bit, like it does fill your stomach. And so anyway, we go to an Italian restaurant, I think it might have even been Sicilian, and they didn't bring bread to the table. What they brought to the table was cucumbers, giant chunks of cucumbers that had been hit up with nothing more than high-quality olive oil and big old, salt. When I say big old salt, kosher's okay, but I mean better than that. Like there's sea salt that's fine textured, and there's sea salt that's like gross, GROS, like much bigger chunks of the salt. So anyway, there's something about a cucumber salad then which is really easy to do. In fact, I put the recipe in my book apologetically, because it's like, how do you call it even a recipe? It's just cucumbers with some olive oil and some some sea salt. right? But what's so great about it is even if you use the cucumbers as a base, you can flavor it with any kind of thing that you want, right? Suppose you flavored it with za'atar, which we talked about last week, the Mediterranean kind of spice, and some feta cheese. Suppose you had a hot vinaigrette. What do I mean by a hot vinaigrette? I mean that when you made those lardons, right, that bacon grease, you're not totally throwing away, right? You take some hot bacon fat, right, that is rendered out from when you cook your bacon, and it becomes a lovely base for a warm vinaigrette. You just have to be careful when you put in the vinegar because you don't want that thing squirting on you, but that's how you make a hot vinaigrette, right? There's some bacon grease in the pan. You throw in a little, say, garlic or onion. You smell it, you go, oh, that's good. And then in goes the red pepper, the vinaigrette, right, the red vinegar, right, and then a little hit of salt, right, and then a little bit of pepper, and you go, okay, there I go, I got a hot vinegar. So that hot vinegar dressing can go right on your cucumbers, and so there you go. I like a nice cucumber salad. Throw in some olives. I don't know. That just is appealing to me. What can I tell you? What else is on this list? Well, lemon chicken thighs. I mean, that's just kind of funny, right? Because I make more chicken thighs than almost anything in the world. Again, I've kind of overstated it, but you can do the chicken thighs with 2 ingredients, the other one being Frank's. Better than that, actually. Throw some salt on your chicken thighs, just some salt, right, and hit it up with a whole bunch of lemon, right. In fact, go ahead and even grate some lemon zest, throw that in the oven. That's easy. So many ways to play the thighs. As I've said 1,000 times, we'll take my favorite kind of momentary herb or spice. Maybe you like chili, right? The flavor of chili. So you take some chili powder and you hit up your thighs with nothing more than chili powder and salt, and you throw them into the oven until they get crispy and great. Yeah, I know. Now all of a sudden everybody's making thighs. And I'll tell you what else everybody is making. The vegetable of the year, right, is cauliflower. I still think that that's the case. We're just eating it in 1,000 different ways. Again, I grew up with cauliflower. I wouldn't eat it because no matter how it was prepared, it was bad. If it was raw, it was cardboard. If it was boiled, it was just gross. Cauliflower, however, when you roast it, is such a beautiful thing. You buy a whole cauliflower, you cut it up, you put it on a roasting pan with olive oil. It goes in the oven with some salt. You cook it until you look at it and you go, damn, that looks really good. And the darker it gets, the better it gets, right? The more caramelized, the more flavor. Just fantastic. Hit it up with your Franks, you got buffalo cauliflower, right? How about this? How about cauliflower rice everybody's eating instead of like regular rice? You take that cauliflower, it goes in the food processor, and you blend it down till it has the texture of rice. And frankly, they're selling cauliflower rice everywhere you go, both fresh and frozen, right? So you saute up some aromatics, by which I mean some garlic, I don't know, whatever, some ginger, some scallion. You throw in your cauliflower rice, you toss it around, maybe some soy sauce, maybe a little bit of sesame oil. Lovely. Cauliflower steaks, cauliflower everywhere. I like it with, maybe, you could also put some bacon bits in with it and toss that around. You could use the Korean condiment of gochujang with cauliflower. Yeah, it's all so lovely. All so lovely, cauliflower. We already talked about fish from before. Not a problem. Steak, brown butter basted steak shows up on their list. The trick here is brown butter. Like, it's not going to hurt anything. I mean, I'll use brown butter. I think I have a recipe in my book for some type of fish that is finished. Oh yeah, Meunière, à la Meunière is the recipe that's using a lemon butter, but it's a brown butter. So if you brown butter, right, it gets that kind of hazelnutty flavor to it. Like, brown butter is better than regular old butter, right? It has more flavor to it. Well, on fish, you have a piece of fish that you can cook anyway. I mean, damn it. Like, when you have brown butter, you don't have to do a lot with the fish. You can steam it, for God's sake. Right? So you take some butter, you put it over a heat, you let it cook down, you let it keep cooking, it turns brown, and you got some brown butter. You could squirt in some lemon. Just be careful, because it will squirt back at you, and you don't want hot butter on your face, because that stings, right? But anyway, brown butter also is used. Sans lemon. Brown butter is used oftentimes in steak restaurants, like right before they bring that steak out. that they've put on a 1,000-degree, grill. They'll hit it up with a nice bit of brown butter on top of it. And you go, oh, that's good. Brown butter, my friends. Make it yourself. Not complicated cooking. Let's see if there's anything else on here. Yeah, salmon, blah, 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 lamb, and these things. Whole grain pancakes with blackberries. I'm not into it, and I'll tell you why I'm not. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's probably healthier than, it is healthier than regular pancakes. And I love blackberries. They're one of the superfoods. But I like peanut butter. And I have a recipe in the book for the peanut butter French toast. It's so easy and so good. Short order dad. Available on Amazon. Peanut butter French toast. Yeah, I'm into that. Anyway, there's a whole bunch more recipes there. And like I said, you need some help. You need some guidance. You need some assistance. You go to shortorderdad.com. You hit the button that says Ask Rob, and you ask me. In fact, there's a feature on the website which is interesting. You can ask me straight up in just a question form. That'll come to me as a question in an email. Or you can literally, if you have any technical capacity whatsoever, you can ask me the question on video, and I will video the answer back. Hey, Rob, tell me about that brown butter. Yes, I certainly will, ma'am. Here you go. A lot of recipes. I'm hungry now. I'm starving from all these recipes. And finally, my friends, this week at Costco, brought to you by me, the Costco Ho. Not just one item this week. I want to make reference to three of them, which I see there. Well, two of them I see there all the time. Then one of them I hadn't seen before. All right, so let's start with the ones that I see all the time. And again, it actually is apropos because we were just talking about making cucumber salad. And so one of the things you can get at the Costco is the 3 English cucumbers. That's how they come, 3 together. And the English ones are the long ones. And what's great about them, aside from the fact that they're super long and yummy and crunchy, is that they don't have like a whole lot of visible seed. So they're great eating. Easy to peel and easy to work with and really good. Nice and keep them nice and cold. And we go through those a lot. Because like I said, you could keep them simple. Right, which is to say, high-end olive oil and some nice coarse, sea salt. That's good. A lot of stuff you could do with the cucumbers. So that's 3 of them. They sell them by the 3s, and they're great. Another item that you can pick up at the Costco with regularity, I find, is the bag of shishito peppers. And again, that's one of those things that's increasingly more popular over the last year or two that you see at restaurants. The blistered shishito peppers, which you could make easily on your own, and I do. Just open up the bag of shishitos from the Costco, give them a quick rinse, dry them a bit, dry them a lot. Anyway, oil, generally neutral, goes into your fry pan, your saute pan, and when it's nice and hot, put in your shishito peppers. And here's what's so great about it. You could just keep cooking them and cooking them. I want to see color. I want to see dark color. So those things cook longer than you don't have to, by the way. You can give them a little char. But to me, the longer you keep them in there and the longer you give them color and the softer they get, the better they are. Why do we love shishitos? Because they're a delicate tasting pepper versus say like a green pepper, but they do have that slight hit of some of them are a little spicy and some of them aren't. And all you need to make them, aside from your neutral oil in a hot pan, which you're cooking for I'll go for 5-10 minutes. I don't have any problem with that. Dark is great. All they need again to finish them off is a nice hit of salt. Kosher salt is fine. Coarse salt is good. Any kind of salt that you have, frankly. So you got 3 ingredients and you have a fantastic appetizer, which goes down really easy, right? You grab that little stem, you take a bite of that thing. It's just beautiful. People love the blistered shishitos. And by blistering, I mean cook the heck out of them there in that pan. And then finally, I'm going to give you 3 this week from Costco because, here it is, yeah. Your andouille, which is a Cajun kind of sausage. The andouille sausage is well known in Cajun or Creole cooking. In this case, what they're selling over at the Costco is a chicken version of it, right? So what's lovely about it is you're getting a bunch of protein. It's preservative-free, which is nice. It's gluten-free. It has no pork. It's a chicken andouille sausage. And again, how easy to make it, because they're already kind of cooked, right? Like, you're not eating this stuff raw. I have a grill pan. The grill pan goes on very high heat and with no lubrication whatsoever. It's simply, or maybe you could put a little in. You just want to make sure it doesn't stick. But again, these things just lay out beautifully in the grill pan until they have a nice char on them. And I don't know, you could eat them any way you want. I eat them straight up, with like a toothpick and maybe some nice mustard. You could serve them with a side of that beautiful, olive salad that they sell over there is great. So they're super as an appetizer. And if you're feeling more ambitious, then nothing stops you from using them as part of another dish, right? I mean, I could steam up, clams with a little onion, a little bit of garlic, and then a little bit of this andouille, and then put the clams in, maybe a shot of white wine, put the lid on. That's just beautiful eating right there. So this week at Costco, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you about the andouille chicken sausage, 3 English cucumbers, and shishito peppers. And that alone, I'd invite you over and have that for a meal. Probably also served, by the way, that apple, what do they sell now? What do you call that? Apple cider beer? Anyway, they do sell that apple, I'm forgetting the name of it, but that would be good with this too. Again, crusty piece of baguette, andouille sausage, cucumber salad, open up with some blistered shishitos. I got that apple beer thing, that malt beery beveragey thing, and some nice baguette, whether it's toasted or not. Oh man, that's dinner at my place right now. Come on, let's do it. This is Rob Rosenthal, your host here. This was episode number 5 of All You Can Eat, and all we did was discuss recipes, and you could, any of them are easy and doable, and like I said, if you need any help with them, I'm easy to contact through my website, which is shortorderdad.com. Frankly, you can find me at Short Order Dad anywhere in the world. You could Short Order Dad me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, because, that's me, Short Order Dad. I happen to be the author of the book, Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free, 100 recipes, 95 of them which use about 5 ingredients or less, guaranteeing you the most taste with the fewest ingredients and the least effort. My friends, I went to cooking school so that you don't have to. Life is short. Never waste a meal. I will look forward to seeing you next week on All You Can Eat. This is Rob Rosenthal signing off from snowy New York.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on